shutdown of our pumping systems. That is regrettable, and again, I apologize on behalf of the Barbados the Barbados Water Authority, as we have been fully engaged in doing a number of things. Anytime there is a system that threatens Barbados, and particularly where the severity is considered, or we think that the severity will be high, we take a number of steps to protect our assets, certainly at the authority, and the assets extend to our pumping stations and the specific electrical and circuitry or components that we have housed within those facilities. We have learned from the past where we have not taken the level of precaution that we are now taking, as we would have done in Elsa, during Elsa, Hurricane Elsa, and as we are doing now, that we often suffer a loss of significant equipment, a loss of significant pumps. And whenever we resume operations, we find that it takes us weeks, sometimes months, to be able to recover, even though that may not be obvious at all times to all and sundry. The pumps are extremely expensive, and they're not necessarily easily replaceable, and sometimes based on special order that take time to be able to replace, even though we have spares. So out of caution, we would have shut down our systems to make sure that we protect the integrity of those systems, and to make sure that when we resume operations, we can get our lines or transmission or distribution system charged or fully replenished as soon as possible. The process of shutting down our systems really was done in a phased approach, and while that was not properly explained initially, all that was said was that we're doing it over 3 hours. We would have indicated that we were going to start at 7:30. Given the late notice, however, we started much later than that to give everyone an opportunity to make the necessary preparations. I can confirm at this time that all pumping stations have been shut down. All pumping stations rather have been taken offline. And during that time, the lines or the system will have still been somewhat fully recharged at the time. And particularly at this time during the night, we would not expect that the distribution system would deplete very quickly. So there's still water in the mains, there's still water in our reservoirs. In some areas, we have experienced low pressure, 1 or 2 complaints of water outages, and that was because we recognized that there was an immediate demand when the notices were posted. Having pulled that back a little bit, we were able to get those systems better replenished. So a couple of points that we really wanted to point out is that, every time we have this type of system or this type of threat, this is the process we normally go through. When we did it during Elsa, it wasn't as widely publicized or broadcasted, and therefore many people were none the wiser. This year, in the spirit of transparency, we were trying to make sure everyone understood and see exactly what is happening. So each time we have this type of situation, we will let the public know what is happening. The second point to be made is that the systems do not deplete immediately unless there's a rush based on demand to do so. The systems will take some time to discharge, and particularly during nighttime where the demand for water is not necessarily as heavy. The other thing is that it is phased. We don't shut down everything at the appointed hour. It is phased over a period of several hours, and in as much as there are over 40 systems that we need to get to, and to make sure that it's done in a particular way, it will take time. So there's a phasing of the system, or phasing of in terms of how we take the system offline. The last thing is that we do not take off the critical systems or the major pumping stations off immediately. We take those off last. So the very last system, for instance, that would have taken offline would have been the bell. And that's because the bell is supplying a large catchment area of our system. So I really wanted to make sure that we emphasize or point out what it is that has happened. So apologize once again for the late notice, and to help you understand the need for us, why we needed to do this. The final point I will make is that it takes 3 hours or thereabouts to get our systems fully shut down, simply because this has to be done in a very manual way. It cannot be done remotely at the level to ensure that we have the level of safety that we would want. Each breaker at every system, at every station, has to be turned off manually. While we have surge arresters and a number of protective mechanisms on our electrical circuitry, we found from experience the best thing for us to do is to shut down manually. When we did this during Hurricane Elsa, the next day when we turned on our systems, when we resumed pumping, we had absolutely no problems, absolutely no equipment that was lost. What we faced was electrical supply challenge. And at that time, while we were not fully equipped with all generators, several of our systems we were slow in getting several of our systems up.